The Roman Empire. You know it, you may not love it, but there's no denying it's a historical juggernaut. The Roman Empire isn't my Roman Empire, but I still thoroughly enjoy it. It's got it all. The Greek appropriation and obsession with repurposed mythology, the politics, the brutality, the scandal. It's a Western foundation and it's juicy. And what more delicious fruit to squeeze than the power-drunk antics of mad emperors? Of which Caligula is right in contention for the most debased monster, at least according to Suetonius' biography of him, which is what we're talking about here. Incestuous, sex-crazed, a sadistic and corrupt tyrant, it seems Caligula fit a lot of scandal into his 4 short years as the Emperor of Rome. Tricky thing is, Suetonius wasn't there. He was born 30 years after Caligula died, so I'd like to qualify all the piping hot tea that comes next by saying this is Suetonius' account of Caligula, not a fact-check version. But I mean, why let the truth get in the way of a good horse consul story? After all, history's written by whoever's the most memorable. To start, we're filled in with Caligula's pedigree. He's part of the Julio-Claudian family tree, which is pretty twisty with lots of repetitive names. You can see it's not Habsburg level of intertwined, but they still did their fair share of keeping it in the family, if you know what I mean. The long and the short is Caligula could claim the Julius Caesar as a great-great-great-uncle and the Augustus Caesar as a great-granddaddy. Powerful stuff. But almost even more impressive to Suetonius is Caligula's daddy, Germanicus. We get pages and pages dedicated to how amazing Germanicus is. He's the strongest, most handsome, most smart, most kindest, most accomplished, most modest man to have ever existed. He could win a court case just as easily as a war. Women loved him, men loved him, the army loved him, the common people loved him. Whenever he visited a town, he'd have to be careful about getting mobbed by adoring fans. Suetonius reckons Germanicus' one and only flaw was bro skip leg day. Apparently those underdeveloped pins were the only thing holding him back from supreme giga-chaddom. If you're ever cursing your calf genetics, just remember, Germanicus's were so bad we're still hearing about it 2,000 years later. Germanicus was the adopted heir of his uncle, the Emperor Tiberius, which didn't bode well for our poor spindly-legged DILF. Murder was a family tradition, so universal popularity without being the emperor was an extreme hazard. He died at around 34 under mysterious circumstances for one so hale and hearty. It's widely believed he was assassinated at the behest of Uncle Tiberius. Reportedly, the whole empire, from Rome to its client kingdoms, went into an extreme state of mourning when he died. Not in the least because people reckon Tiberius was an A-grade dick, and Germanicus was the only thing holding him back from ascension into true villainy. Caligula's name was actually Gaius, but when he was a little tyke on campaign with his dad, he ran around in a tiny soldier's outfit, so the soldiers all called him Little Boot, which is Caligula in Latin. There's too many other Gaiuses in the family tree, so I'm sticking to Caligula. Germanicus left behind a wife and 6 kids. 3 older sons, Caligula being the youngest of the 3, and 3 younger daughters. Caligula was 4 at the time. Tiberius was notorious for his treason trials and political purges. Eventually, Caligula's mother and 2 brothers were variously exiled or imprisoned for political reasons and died from mistreatment. After his mother was exiled, Caligula was brought up by one grandmother, then another after the first died. That was until he turned 19 and Tiberius sent for him. Caligula was in danger from the second he stepped into Tiberius's orbit. Almost immediately he was asked by various people to make complaints about Tiberius. He was thrown into a pit of vipers. But
I'm a snake. I'm a snake. I'm a super slithery snake.
He was a born viper himself. Tiberius knew it too. Real recognized real. One cruel dude to another. He was aghast at the viciousness he witnessed in Caligula. For example, Caligula enjoyed watching torture and executions. He'd also use a wig to disguise himself, sneak out, and abandon himself to nightly pleasures of feasting and scandalous living. So pretty much standard teenage behaviour. Outwardly, Caligula kept himself passive and amiable. He earned high office and was even named Tiberius's joint heir along with Tiberius's grandson, also called Tiberius. The patience paid off, and his moment for revenge finally came, being a participant in the machinations behind Emperor Tiberius's unnatural death. With the emperor out of the way, Caligula found himself in a pretty sweet situation, riding on an immense stockpile of goodwill his daddy had built up. The son of beloved Germanicus? Here? After we've endured the monster Tiberius? The people of Rome said,
"Hell yes!"
Immediately set aside Tiberius's will to disinherit the grandson and promptly conferred absolute power on Caligula. I see no flaws in that logic. The populace was so ecstatic with this turn of affairs, they publicly sacrificed 160,000 people over the next 3 months. And you know he farmed the popularity points. He delivered a moving funeral speech about Tiberius, showing politics hasn't really changed much. Kill a dude behind closed doors, then publicly honour him after the fact. To continue farming the goodwill, he made a huge political song and dance about gathering ashes of dead family members and moving them to the family mausoleum. He also changed September to Germanicus September, I imagine. Riding high on the adoration, Caligula was making good decisions, left, right, and centre. Building works over here, abolishing taxes over there. He ended the feared and reviled treason trials with a huge gesture of publicly burning Tiberius's records of evidence given by people to condemn others. He said he'd not read them so people could breathe easy, as their evidence to the previous emperor wouldn't be used by the current one to bite them in the ass. As it turned out, this was just a huge PR stunt. You best believe he kept all the receipts and pulled them out later. Even though Emperor Tiberius's will had been set aside, disinheriting Tiberius the Younger, he still honoured most of the bequests in it. He restored thrones to disinherited kings and awarded them the value of the taxes they would have received during the time they'd been ousted. He lifted bans on outlawed books so they could be republished. He brought back the practice of publishing an imperial budget, and he also made it so the people could appoint their own magistrates, and there wasn't an avenue of appeal he could arbitrarily intervene in. He purged corrupt and scandalous people from the middle class, but wasn't unduly heavy-handed with the punishments. We all know Romans loved their gladiatorial games, and he gave them plenty. He was super generous and would provide vouchers of all sorts of rich gifts to attendees. It was to the point where when Caligula fell ill, people would vow to fight gladiators or commit suicide if only he'd recover. All of this got him massive kudos, huge official honours. At this point, we're told Caligula was universally praised for his virtues. But in the words of Suetonius, so much for Caligula the Emperor. The rest of his biography must needs deal with Caligula the Monster. You know, the one infamous for ridiculous shit like wanting to appoint his favourite horse as a Roman consul, which was the highest office you could reach without being emperor. Talk about horsepower, am I right? Suetonius pins Caligula's descent into batshit crazy on two things. First, he got super sick and for a few months was on the precipice of death. Second, his favourite sister died. You see, Caligula loved his sisters like Jaime Lannister loved his sister. It was said he'd line them up and, have his way with each of them in turn. Drusilla, though, he loved and respected her the most out of all of them. Apparently he ravished her before he even came of age, and their grandmother had caught them in bed together. The other two were bleh in his eyes, and he treated them very poorly. He'd pass them out to his boys to amuse them, then turn around and accuse them of adultery. He played all sorts of nasty manipulative mind games, setting them up to fail. In contrast, he treated Drusilla as his wife. He was so messed up when she died that during the period of public mourning, he made it a capital offence to laugh, bathe, or to have dinner with one's parents, wives, or children. From here, Suetonius builds a case that Caligula wasn't just a bad emperor. He was vice incarnate, the worst person you could conceive of. According to Suetonius, there wasn't a person alive who Caligula wouldn't fuck. Rank, gender, and marriage vows simply didn't exist for him. Senators' wives, newlyweds, actors, hostages, young nobles were all fair game. Oh, I'm invited to your wedding? Well, the wedding's off because I'm taking the bride now. Oh, you're married already? I'm asleep with you and talk about your bedroom performance in front of your husband. Or actually, I might just divorce you two whether you want it or not. When it came to his male partners, he was averse, not caring if he topped or bottomed, which seemed to matter. Although he's absolutely a power bottom with one of his tops saying he'd been completely exhausted from all of Caligula's demands. If lust was one vice, pride was another. Before long, Caligula wasn't content just being an emperor. He wanted to be a god. One night he had a few kings over and they were bickering about who was more noble. Meanwhile, Caligula's fuming because obviously it's him. He was about to blow his stack when one of his courtiers was like, "Don't stoop to their level. Clearly you outrank all these goons." Caligula was like, "Damn right I do. I am a god." From then on, he made everyone worship him. He extended his palace into the big dog Jupiter's temple. Then he sat in the temple next to Jupiter's statue to be worshipped. He had a life-sized golden statue of himself installed for the times he couldn't be there in person. Every day, it'd be dressed up in the exact same fit he had on, so they'd match. Caligula was vain, but in a super oddball way. Suetonius says he was tall, pale, with a large body and neck, but inherited Germanicus's spindly legs. He had sunken eyes and a five-head. His body was hairy, but his head was balding, which he was so insecure about that he made it a capital offence for anyone to either look down on him as he passed, or to mention goats. At all. It also didn't help he didn't give a damn about what he wore. He ignored both traditional and current fashions, and ignored not only masculine but even human conventions. It was a mixed bag with what his getup might be in any given moment, from dressing up like a general or a goddess, or just a coat and slippers to deliver a public speech. As few favours as he did for himself, he was also super jealous of anyone good looking. If he saw a guy with a luscious head of hair, he'd have them shaved or a little bit scalped. Caligula got mogged so hard by this one guy, who everyone was swooning over, that he made him fight 22 bouts in the arena. After he won all the fights, Caligula had him dressed up in rags, tied up, dragged through the streets, then finally strangled. It's Caligula's cruelty Suetonius dwells on the most. Not simply that Caligula killed people, but he enjoyed making them suffer. It didn't take long for him to fall into the family murder tradition, targeting the young Tiberius as a victim. His reasoning was Tiberius had taken an antidote for a poison, which basically implied Caligula was trying to kill him. And that implication was super insulting, since he'd never try to kill someone without good cause. Naturally, death was the only logical consequence for this grave insult. He unwound by taking a meal with the relaxing sights and sounds of torture or execution, handily having an expert headsman on call in case he hankered for a cheeky decapitation. Caligula's mantra was, "Let them hate me so long as they fear me." There was plenty of reason to fear him, and pretty much anyone close to him eventually got killed, being accused of some plot or another. If he was ill and you swore to the gods you'd fight gladiators or commit suicide just so he could live, you best believe Caligula was enforcing that shit, even if it had only been said for a little bit of hyperbole. His preferred method of execution was to inflict numerous small wounds, avoiding the vital organs. His directive was for the executioner to make the victim really feel he's dying. Heaps of people were sent to work in the mines, which was basically a fate worse than death. Or they were put to work on the roads or thrown to wild beasts. Some were put in cages that were so small they had to crouch on all fours like animals. Some were sawn in half. All this, and often it was just for offences as minor as deigning to criticise one of his shows, or failing to swear that he was a genius. He'd make parents attend their sons' executions. When one father excused himself because he was sick, Caligula sent him the Roman equivalent of a limo, just so he could attend. He invited another father of a freshly executed son to dinner, so he could twist the knife by playing the funny, entertaining host, telling jokes that you just know had to be laughed at, whether you were grieving the death of a child or not. When one man was killed because of a name mix-up, he announced the innocent victim must have equally deserved death. Forever the tyrant, he messed with the people's beloved gladiatorial games. On hot days, he'd remove canopies and say, "No one's allowed to leave." Or he'd announce this big, exciting show, then bait and switch with lame, worn-out animals and feeble old fighters instead. At a banquet, he burst out laughing, and his noble guests asked, "What's the joke?" Caligula was like, "Ha ha ha, what do you think? Just occurred to me that I have only to give one nod and your throats will be cut on the spot." What a punchline. Once in the middle of the night, he summoned 3 senators of the highest rank to his palace. Half dead with fear, they were taken to a stage that had been set up, and then suddenly Caligula burst onto it, dressed in a shawl and an ankle-length tunic, to perform a song and dance. Then he disappeared just as suddenly. It's giving forcing your parents to watch a show, only, if they don't, they die. We'll round out this list of vices with greed, because you just know Caligula was rorting the system and abusing his power. After he burned through his hefty inheritance from Tiberius, he started making money however he could to keep up with his extravagant habits. He made up new taxes to replace the ones he abolished. He taxed everything, including past income. He'd have people killed so he could take their property. It was expected everyone would leave him money in their wills when they died. He'd auction off goods and bully everyone so his stuff was bought at incredibly inflated prices. He made a brothel in his palace, had it filled with married women and free-born boys, then invited everyone to come in and enjoy themselves. If the guests didn't have enough money to pay for their entertainment, he'd lend it to them with crazy high interest rates. Apparently, he developed such a passion for the feel of money that he'd walk over heaping piles of gold pieces, barefoot, or lie down and wallow in them like a pig in mud. By this stage, Caligula loathed the Senate and the nobles. Considering he did everything in his power to humiliate and degrade them, we can only assume the feeling was mutual. Yet for all that, his undoing came from two of his Praetorian guards who got sick of his shit. He'd falsely accused them of a plot to kill him, then kept trying to play them off each other and insulted them at every turn. Eventually they were like, screw it, if we're doing the time, may as well do the crime, and they offed him. And so ended Caligula's stint as emperor after 4 short years.
You know you love me. XOXO. Gossip Girl.
Believe it or not, I've only given examples of all the debased shenanigans Suetonius attributed to Caligula. His biography reads like a laundry list of outlandish accusations. Whether Caligula really was this monstrous is almost impossible to know. Suetonius was born 3 decades after his death, and by then every rumour, scandal and political grudge had had years to snowball. Suetonius seems to have been jotting down every salacious surviving story propagated by who knows, and likely with questionable motivations. Historical accuracy perhaps not being at the forefront. So, read as strict history, it deserves a healthy dose of skepticism. Read as Rome's greatest gossip column, it's a shock jock's masterpiece. And that's all from me. Thank you.